I am back. New York City baseball, Mets in particular, past, present, and future. My name is Ralph Tyko. Marty Rose, my co-host, is on assignment. I'm lucky enough to have a very considerate, understanding human who knows that technology happens. As a return guest, we're going to take a little take two with the King of Queens, Erik Sherman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Ralph. How are you today?
All right. Again, thanks for being so understanding about the way of things and interviewing, and sometimes the internet just messes up with me. You told me an interesting story that you were recording an interview with the immortal Darryl Strawberry when you looked down at your tape recorder and oops, what happened?
Yeah. It happens once, I think, to every writer or reporter, and they make sure it never ever happens again. But yeah, I was interviewing Strawberry for Kings of Queens, and I glanced down at my tape recorder, and it had stopped. And you know, it's like someone sticking a knife into your stomach. You just like, oh my goodness. But lucky enough, I was able to get the recorder going. What had happened, I guess the cassette, the tape itself had become tangled. So you can imagine, I mean, it's just so embarrassing. But Strawberry was great about it, and but right after that I moved to digital. So I've moved into the 21st century, and so now I use my iPhone and I use a backup digital recorder. So that won't happen again. Just have to keep the batteries fully charged.
All right. You mentioned something too that you, when doing your book, you talked to Mookie Wilson for upwards of 10 hours.
Well, yeah, that was for the autobiography that I co-wrote with Mookie. Mookie, you know, I've done 3 other autobiographies as a co-author, and Mookie's energy was just incredible. You know, we would sit down at his hotel room when he'd come up to New York. You know, he's the Mets team ambassador, and if he had an off day, we'd sit and we'd talk for upwards of 10 hours. And you know, when I did the books with Steve Blass and Glenn Burke, it was a fraction of that amount of time. I mean, that's a lot of talking. I mean, without really breaking to grab lunch or anything. But Mookie just had incredible energy and was always enthusiastic about what we talked about. And he's a freak of nature in a way. You know, he's 60 years old now, and he has the energy of a 20-year-old.
That is wonderful to hear. What is it that drives him?
Mookie?
Yeah.
What drives Mookie?
What makes him different than your run-of-the-mill former ex-Med ambassadors? Yeah, why is he so special? He is.
Oh well, why is Mookie so special? Well, he's certainly not the greatest Mets player of all time, but I've always believed he's the most beloved. He was with the team for the entire decade of the 80s. You know, the only one that was a member of that team through the good, the bad, the championship, and then the downfall afterwards. So I think that has a lot to do with it. You know, when fans, you know, they love the homegrown players, and even though Keith Hernandez is so beloved in the annals of Mets history, you know, he was a Cardinal. Gary Carter, he came over from Montreal. So I think there's a special place in Mets fans' hearts for someone like Mookie and that 10,000 watt smile of his. You know, the fact that he was a homegrown player and he keeps himself in great shape, and you know, probably won't be one of those guys that lives till he's 100.
I hope so, because he does represent the spirit of the New York Mets. just what you say. The 80s is a good microcosm of them. Bad, great, and bad again. It has been for 50 years, a day-to-day and up and down battle. This season is no exception. I think, I'm sure you were watching last night or listening, I think we may have seen the most dramatic moment in one of the most single-game dramatic moments in Met history last night with Asdrubal Cabrera's home run in extra innings. It was made me tingle. I'm an old guy.
Well, it was a big home run. Yeah, I mean, it could. You may look back at this season. I mean, if they win a wild card spot by one game, you'll certainly look back at this game. It's easy to forget Jose Reyes' two-run homer to tie it in the ninth, which was almost as dramatic. And I was at the game the night before when Cespedes was robbed of a ninth inning two-out home run that would have won it. I mean, it's the Mets. They are. They're, you could say they're almost playing down to the level of competition, but it's sure is entertaining to watch.
Sure is, and as beat up as they are, I've really, every time they get an injury, they go on a 2-3 game winning streak. DeGrom is out now. Matz looks like he's gone for the year. How they do it, and that they continue to do it, is done through Mirrors and Bartolo Colon.
Yeah.
You have anything to say about Bartolo?
I think he's the modern day Louis Tiant for the Mets. I think he is what Tiant was to the mid '70s Red Sox. Both are out of shape, overweight. But they are the guys that you can rely on every fourth or fifth day to go out there and pitch a quality game. And, the similarities, I think, are startling. I mean, Tiant was probably the slightly superior, but in what they mean to each team, I think they closely resemble each other. I mean, think of where the Mets would be without Colon this year. They certainly wouldn't be battling for a playoff spot. Colon's very important, and this team, I think they're also the beneficiary of some mediocrity in the National League, which is fine. It happens. It happened with the Mets in '73 when they finished. Well, I think it was 83 and 79 or something like that, and they made it into the playoffs, and they were able to beat a superior Cincinnati Reds team, and they took the A's to a seventh game, and of course the A's were the better team. So, anything can happen. You just have to make it into the dance, and if the Mets, the schedule certainly helps them here. They're playing the Phillies and the Marlins, so I think they've got a good shot.
Boy, that's very interesting. Everybody talks schedule down the end, and it does look like they have a good shot. But does a team, and this is just a theory, does a team like Philadelphia, who's clearly out of it, playing for pride, playing for, next year, playing with the name on their back, on the front of their shirt, if you will, do loose teams like that, who are almost taken for granted down the stretch, do they come up big a high percentage of times? And we need a fellow like Derek Bain, who does statistical analyzation like that, maybe this is just off the top of my head, to come up with some writing to see, does Philadelphia have an advantage in the sense that they're loose, that they have nothing to play for.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, Philadelphia is playing loosey-goosey right now. And, I think the same can be said for any of these teams the Mets are playing now. I mean, they've had problems this week. They've won one of their last 5 games. When a team is out of it, they have nothing to lose. And like in life, I mean, if someone's got nothing to lose, they're dangerous. And so I think these second-tier teams that the Mets are having a problem with, it's tough. But I'm on social media a lot, and I've been one of the biggest I've criticized Terry Collins quite a bit, and I'll give him credit for this. They've had a lot of injuries, and Collins clearly is doing something in that clubhouse to keep these guys playing hard. But his in-game decisions have really cost the Mets dearly. And, I mean, the game the other night was just example number 1 of that, when they lost when Cespedes was robbed of the home run. I mean, he's just making one head-scratching move after the next. And, Backman obviously is out of the picture. And not that they should have made a move this year. I mean, Collins has kept them in the fight, and it's fine. But, the Mets really, I think, to get to that next level, they're really going to have to bring in a manager that does better in-game in making decisions. I mean, to have Plawecki up in a critical spot like that, as a pinch hitter the other night, to have some of the pinch hitters he was bringing up, some of the pitching changes that he was making, you're just like, what is he thinking about? It's just head scratching. I could give you 4 or 5 specifics, but it's like they really need to make a change. And I think even if the Mets do make a wild card this year, they have to look long and hard. And I'd love to say that they would pick someone from their own history, the '86 team, which I guess is a good segue for my book. But it's not going to be Backman while Sandy Alderson's still there. And surprisingly, I mean, this is a pretty good segue into my book, Kings of Queens, Life Beyond Baseball with the '86 Mets. Backman talks about some of the travails that he had, with Sandy and the organization and the promises that were made to Backman. I was actually surprised that Backman would go on record with me in the book with some of the things that he said. But, I found that all the '86 Mets that I talked to were extremely transparent. And I think that's what made them such great copy back in the '80s, and has made them great copy ever since. You still have Dykstra in the headlines today for some of the things he had in his recent book. The whole Strawberry Gooden thing recently, with Strawberry urging Doc to get help for his drug addiction. These guys are extremely transparent.
Nice to get advice sometimes. It must be nice to get advice sometimes. Poor Doc. That it's drug addiction, or any sort of addiction, is something one can do and conquer or not on their own. And
well, no one can speak to that like Strawberry. I mean, this guy, and he talks about it in the book very vividly, how he had given up on life. He lost the will to live. He defeated cancer twice. He was on crack cocaine. It derailed, his cocaine usage derailed what would have been a Ted Williams kind of career. You know, Doc could have been Walter Johnson. You know, I mean, you could have been talking about two of the very greatest players of all time whose careers were completely derailed by their drug use. And so with Strawberry being in a very good place right now, you know, he's running drug rehab facilities. He's an ordained minister who travels 40 weeks out of the year. Obviously, his faith has helped him overcome many of his demons, as it helps a lot of people. And if anyone can talk to Doc, it's Strawberry. And, you know, Strawberry came under a lot of heat from some of his other 86 Mets teammates saying, hey, don't meddle with Doc. It's Doc's problem, not yours. Well, you know what? That's all very, very well and good. But here's the thing. If we wake up and, God forbid, we read the paper tomorrow and Doc, something terrible has happened to him, well, then was it a bad thing if Strawberry tried to reach out to him to try to save his life? You know, I don't think so. Narcotics is serious business, and it's very, very addictive and very seductive. And if Doc needs help, then I think there's nothing wrong with someone like Strawberry coming in and offering to help him.
I appreciate that, but I also appreciate the fact that given their past history together and the ego of a man, just Doc's ego, and down at a point in life where he knows he's down, I don't think he's appreciative that it got played out in the paper is all. And I know Doc has to be coming from, or Strawberry has to be coming from a good place in his heart. But it has to be very difficult for Gooden as well. And as it has been they're not the only two that have suffered cocaine addiction. You mentioned Keith Hernandez. There was a big scandal in the 80s about before he even came to the Mets about his addictions.
Yeah, and Keith is very open about that. Yeah, yes, we did. That was a part of Keith's story for sure. You know, he said that drugs are highly addictive and they're serious business, and he certainly has had his own individual battle with cocaine usage. He got through it. He gave credit to his friends and family on that he's always had a guardian angel that maybe some of these other guys didn't have. And no, Keith certainly understands. You know, I mean, he really was, and this isn't to make any excuses, but in the early 80s, cocaine usage was rampant in baseball. I mean, you talk about the Pittsburgh drug trials, which Keith had to testify before, which ended up landing him in some hot water with baseball. But, I mean, it was a much bigger problem than has been reported. I mean, it was, you know, like in society, you know, the rich, young and successful, that was the drug of choice. And it was a big problem in this country in the early 80s, and Keith was symptomatic of that problem.
Well, to blame also, let's face it, is the antiquated federal government stance on drugs and the war that they fight and continue to fight that can't be won. And it needs legalization and permission to take it and all of that stuff. And that's not just baseball. Baseball is a microcosm of society.
Right.
So you can't really blame anyone in baseball. But you can give a big credit to the people on top, just like with the steroid thing. They knew what was going on as long as it didn't affect the bottom line, then the powers that be in baseball had no inclination to help get these people on the wagon or whatever it takes, getting counseling. They've always been behind about stuff like that. But on to a happier note. Tell me about Strawberry's relationship with Backman back in those days and how it's improved today now that Strawberry has helped himself.
Sure. Well, as you probably know, Ralph, Strawberry used to refer to Wally as the little redneck. And Strawberry could be very cruel and condescending to his teammates. He had a reputation for that. But he's greatly changed, obviously, and he's just really taken to his new stake in life and helping other people, and he's a completely changed man. And Wally, he's one of my favorite people on that '86 Mets team. He's I really feel like he's gotten a bad rap, going back to the domestic dispute that he had in his home some 15 years ago. He had the Arizona Diamondbacks job back in 2004, had a press conference, the whole thing, and then once news came out in a New York Times article about some of his financial troubles, which I have no idea what that has to do with anything, and the domestic dispute, which had nothing to do with his wife. It had to do with one of his wife's friends who was over at his house talking very badly about her husband, whom she was divorcing, and who also happened to be Wally's best friend. A confrontation came out of it, and she took a baseball bat and cracked Wally's left arm. He showed me the 9-inch scar to prove it, but she called the police first, and Wally spent a day in jail, and he had a record. And even though he never took blame, or admitted any guilt to anything, he now had a record. And baseball, for a while now, has taken a pretty strong stance against domestic disputes, and rightfully so. But in Wally's case, this wasn't true. I mean, if you ask Wally's wife what happened, she'll say it would be laughable that Wally would ever touch her. So it's very disturbing, because Wally is so qualified to being a major league manager. It's really an outrage. He's proven everything he has to do at the minor league level, and you just talk to him, and I mean, he knows how to run an organization, and he would be a phenomenal manager. And it's such a kick in the teeth to this guy that you're seeing managers hired in baseball with no managerial experience. It's incredible. So they won't give Wally a shot, and I think he was treated terribly by the Mets. The Mets are not a well-run organization right now, from the top on down. It's just a disgrace. And the fact they made the World Series last year and might actually make the playoffs, they probably will this year. It's just incredible. But it also speaks to the mediocrity.
The Alderson. That has to speak tons. Just that he got the money out of Wilpons to get Cespedes at all has to speak highly for a man who's pretty much, this is a mission. This is his last mission, I would say. And
Sandy?
Yeah.
Sandy, well, Cespedes really fell in their lap last year. They actually, were trying to get a couple of other guys instead of Cespedes. Now, I knew what Cespedes was all about. I remember him when he was with the Oakland A's. I have pretty close ties with the Oakland A's through the Glenn book that I wrote, and I knew that Cespedes was a beast, that this guy, he'd come to New York and he would do very well. I mean, he's even exceeded everything I thought he would do. He's such a clutch hitter. He can play in New York.
Clutch is the word. Absolutely.
incredible. And you see what yeah, exactly. You see what Jay Bruce has done. The guy was a home run hitter, a true slugger, comes to New York, just can't get it done. I mean, it takes a special kind of person to come to New York, the brightest spotlight in baseball, and perform the way that Cespedes has. Very few people can do that, and he's done it, and they should do everything that they can to try and re-sign the guy. But I will give Alderson some credit for some of the guys he's brought in. He has a limited budget. But remember something, he was really cast on the Mets, Alderson, because of the Wilpons financial situation, because of the Bernie Madoff deal. I mean, he has brought Moneyball to New York, which is interesting because Moneyball is really designed for the smaller markets like Oakland, not for New York, but I give him credit. I mean, he has gotten some players in here. He's taken some chances. He's brought them in on the cheap, and they've performed. And so I do give him some credit.
Folks that put the pitching staff together, he heads up the scouting and what have you. And so I'll give him credit from that standpoint. I think in the long run, whatever he does, people are going to say in spite of, because at the top there's really ineptitude. But I wanted to point out something that's really funny. Wilpon was either duped or was the dupee in the big financial scandal of our times. So to appoint him as the commissioner did, as I don't know if that went through or if he was turned down, I think he at least nominated him for the head of the financial something of the Major League Baseball. He's on the
That's ironic, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what it is about the catch-22 world that we live in that makes it scary and good theater at the same time. Wow. Hey, we're on a time limit. Your time limit today. So before we go, I want to talk about a mutual. I consider him a friend. He was nice enough to come on these airwaves, and we really hit it off. Ed Hearn and I.
Oh yeah.
Anybody want to go back into the Comfortably Zoned archives, which are all on YouTube's, saved on YouTube, plug that in. He warmed my heart up. Let me just say that. Tell me about your experience with Ed, what he's overcome. An unheralded 1986 New York Met, backup catcher to Gary Carter, who went on to make the Hall of Fame, and himself died under tragic circumstances much, much too early in life.
Yeah, sure. Well,
but Ed Hearn,
Ed Hearn was actually the first person that I interviewed and met with for my book. What separated the book from all the others that have been written on the 86 Mets was I actually got on planes and went out to visit these guys wherever they lived or worked or drank, and traveled nearly 40,000 miles around the country to really get a sense of where these guys are in their lives now. And not just what they're doing, but how they're doing. And of course, I look back at 86 as well. And Ed was the first guy that I went out to see. He lives in the Kansas City area, in Shawnee, Kansas. And he could not have been any more inviting, and a great guy, very inspirational guy, the type of guy that you wouldn't believe was at one point suicidal. And someone that's had 3 kidney transplants, has had he's lived the life of Job as far as, issues in his life, challenges in his life. But the name of the chapter is profiles encourage the Hearns because he married just a fantastic human being. He married a nurse, if you can believe that, back in 1986, before all of his health problems, which the chapter in my book really delves into. Their only child, a son, had Hodgkin's. So they've had to go through a lot. His wife is really the glue keeping that family together, and she's just a remarkable woman, and Ed's a remarkable guy because despite all the challenges he's been up against, he is a motivational speaker, and so he's helped countless people, get through their own troubles and turmoil in their own lives. And he was traded for David Cohn, and Cohn, of course, went on to have a phenomenal career, a borderline Hall of Fame career. And a lot of people say that was the most lopsided trade of all time because when Ed went to Kansas City, he barely played before injuries and illness kind of, just took over his life. And but there's a quote in the book by someone that went to one of Ed's speeches in the Kansas City area, and he said, Ed, a lot of people say that the trade, with you and David Cohn was one of the worst ever for Kansas City. Well, I say it was the best trade that we ever made. So it's and if you read the chapter in Kings of Queens, and you have the opportunity, your listeners, to really hear Ed speak, or even better yet, to meet Ed, you'll come away with something for sure.
Nice, great. One final question, and I'll ask you the same one I ask as many authors as are nice enough to come on. Anything in the book that you wish you would have put in, and anything in the book that you wish you would have left out or changed?
Oh, that's a great question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that question. So there's 14 chapters in the book. So I profiled and met with 14 of the 86 Mets, the key and more intriguing players from that team. So obviously, the Keith Hernandez, Doc Goodins, Darryl Strawberries, Mookie Wilsons, and so forth. But also, the riveting stories like Danny Heap and Ed Hearn, like you mentioned. Kevin Mitchell, a lot of people told me they were fascinated by the Kevin Mitchell chapter. But the one guy that I didn't get that I wanted to get was Ray Knight. And I would meet Ray Knight later, this past summer when the Mets were feted at Citi Field. And I actually spent a lot of time with the team at their hotel, and I was lucky enough to take part in their dinner and so forth. And I met Ray Knight for the first time, and I mean, he's a terrific guy, but apparently he has this thing of not being very good at getting back to people. And I would have liked to have talked to Ray Knight because of how things ended with him and the Mets. He stayed away from the ball club for 30 years up until this summer, and he was the World Series MVP and really brought a leadership to that 86 Mets team that was grossly missed after they didn't re-sign him. And thankfully, the other guy that they grossly missed and didn't re-sign was Kevin Mitchell. And so there was some overlap there, and we talked about Ray Knight in the Mitchell chapter, and other guys alluded to how important Ray Knight was to the ball club. So it was covered, but I would really have liked to have included Ray Knight as one of the players to have been featured in this book. So that would be the one thing that I wish I could have had. Something that, what was the other part of that?
The other is what would have you left out? What would have you?
Okay, left out? Nothing.
Just for,
the feedback I received was so positive, not just from the media, but from the 86 Mets players themselves. Davey Johnson said, Davey wrote the foreword to the book, And after reading it, he called me and he was so excited. He said to me, I loved every word in your book. I mean, he said it was dead on. It was just how those guys are. And, he said to me, he wouldn't have changed a word in anything that I wrote about these guys. So, he was the manager.
How is Davey?
Davey's doing much better. He's doing much better, and I'll tell you, you're one of the first to know, but I'm working on his autobiography right now. So I'm going to be his co-author on his memoir. And so far so good. It's a pleasure to work with him, but his health is much improved, and he's doing much better than he was doing 5 or 6 years ago.
Nice, really nice to know. I just wonder how things could have if those three guys that you talked about, Mitchell, Ray Knight, and Davey Johnson, got to stick around for a long time. It really could have been the dynasty of our time. Certainly the dynasty of the time as a Met fan. Wow. You were lucky enough to chronicle it, and I'm incredibly appreciative that you're so understanding, and I just want to thank you for being here.
Well, that's my pleasure, Ralph. Always a pleasure to come on your show.
As somebody who has a voice or an ear for radio, your articulation, the way you roll your R's on Ray Knight, doesn't go unnoticed. So if you're looking for a career and you want to be a podcaster, you could always call your old buddy Zig, and I'll take care of you.
Well, I appreciate that, Ralph.
You're terrific, and please come back another time.
I will. You got it.
All right, my friend. Thank you, and thank you all out there. I'm just going to end by saying to everybody, hang in there and keep on keeping on, and we'll catch you down the road. Adios. See ya. We are back. New York City baseball, Mets in particular, past, present, and future. I'm Ralph Tyko. The host of the show is Marty Rose, because we can't be co-host tonight. He's got to do the educating. How you doing, Mert?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
How are you? Good.
I'm good. As you know, I returned from my homage to the city I grew up in. My not an homage, a pilgrimage, actually, and went by train both ways. Came back Friday, just now getting my head together and recovering. And I've tried to keep up over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, on what's going down, and I do quite well. I'm daily listening to games and what have you. But you know, when one travels, it's difficult to do so. So I want an update from you on this team that could go down as another Cinderella miracle. The more injuries that are piled upon them is the more they keep coming back. This evening notwithstanding, it's Monday night, and they're losing 3-0. But they swept Minnesota, and the one question I have is, does Collins have the guts to bench Bruce and put Conforto in there and leave him? And that's my first.
Well, he did it tonight, so.
Yeah, I noticed that, and
well, you know his old saying: you hit, you stay in the lineup, and he hit yesterday, so he's back out there again.
2 for 4, a couple of doubles, and yeah, it makes a big difference when he's hitting. Because let's face it, I thought Bruce was the steadiest guy in the National League. He would come on and after a slow start, and he never seemed to have. And how much time do you give him? Some guys can play in New York, and some guys can't. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, well, look, he played his whole career in Cincinnati. He's away from his family. He's living in a hotel by LaGuardia Airport. I mean, that's really a little tough. That's tough on a family man that was used to being in a smaller town, and for a long time, for many years.
And what I'm reading is that. I'm just saying that what I was reading is that he asked Cincinnati specifically not to trade him to the Mets. And my feeling would be, if I were going to acquire a guy and he didn't want to be here, I'd be thinking about getting somebody else, all things being equal.
I would say so. Well, they did try, but things fell through. They did try to get
Ryan Braun.
I think they tried to get the catcher, Lucroy.
Oh yes, I wanted him at the.
Yeah, and that fell through. I don't know if they ever even wanted Braun at all with his baggage. Plus, he probably has a big contract too. I don't know exactly what it is, but you know how they are with contracts. And, so they got a lot to think about. I saw something in the paper today where Neil Walker says he'd like to come back. Well, he's a free agent. They haven't begun any negotiations, but if this kid T.J. Rivera keeps on hitting, he's making the minimum, So.
And he's playing. And is Flores playing most of the time at third base?
Yeah, he's hurt. He hasn't played in like a week. Since he made a head first slide like a week ago, and he hasn't played since. He hurt his neck and his shoulder, I believe. So
that would be like 19 major injuries if a week can be considered a major injury.
Yeah, they were saying that Granderson is the only starter that hasn't been on the DL this year.
Wow, let alone missed extended.
Well, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Thank God for Kelly Johnson, I would say. I'm thinking 2 years in a row now, this guy has really come up big. He's versatile, and he's nice to have. But they're doing it
great. Yeah, pinch hitting. He's great pinch hitting. He hits, left-handed, so he can, spell other guys. He's been a great pickup ever since they got him. But,
okay, I want to ask you, how effective and how much can two returnees, Lagares and Duda, be down the stretch?
Zero, in my opinion. I don't think Duda. The guy, he hasn't played, and when he was ready to come back, minor leagues were finished. He had nowhere to go. He had no rehab games. To me, he shouldn't even be in the postseason roster, in my opinion. And Lagares can't hit. He can't hit because of his injury. All he can do.
I know he has a thumb injury.
It's a ligament in the thumb. So
was he operated
that
on?
is a problem. What's that?
Had he been operated on?
I think he did. I think he was. He's there, but all he can do is play late inning defense. Now, I don't know if you take up a roster spot in the playoffs, for a guy that can just come in late inning defense. I don't know if you do that or not.
Yeah, well, they do have the option of it now, depending how he is, putting him, activating him.
No, Granderson hasn't been playing badly in center field, and Diaz is pretty good out there, from what I can see. So, I mean, I wouldn't waste a roster spot on somebody that can play one inning for defense. I wouldn't.
How about catching Mert long term? D'Arnaud, Pilecki.
Everybody's down on him. Everybody's down on him. I mean,
D'Arnaud.
He hasn't been hitting. He can't throw to second very well. They need to get another catcher. I mean, I like, no question. I like Rivera.
Yeah.
But he's not an everyday guy either. And I'm not sure about Pilecki. We saw a lot of Pilecki earlier in the season when D'Arnaud was on the DL. He was okay, but I think you need to get somebody that's better than okay. And none of the three guys they have is better than okay. I would say that Rivera is by far the best defensively, and he has a very good arm. He throws guys out. But
on a staff that doesn't hold runners very well at all.
Especially Syndergaard. But yeah, you're right. None of them really do hold runners on very well. But,
now DeGrom goes under the knife earlier. Is this for the bone spur thing? Is this?
No. DeGrom has an ulnar nerve problem. It's not Tommy John, but it's related probably to the Tommy John he had a couple of years ago. So they say it's a 3 to 6 month injury. So in all likelihood, we're not going to see him again until spring training. So you got that going on with DeGrom. You have Matz is going to be throwing a bullpen, I think on Wednesday, and if he's good to go, he might be out there on Friday, possibly. But the rest of them, Cologne,
Band-Aids and splint,
Cologne is Cologne, and look, these guys that have come up from Las Vegas have been very good. I mean, there's not one person that's not shocked, because these guys, obviously Las Vegas, Pacific Coast League, the whole thing, everybody knows it's a hitter's league. And if you look at the numbers, you say, geez, are these guys any good? And they come up here, and the ERAs are like half what they were in AAA. They're doing great. Right. And this Gisselman guy, he has a torn labrum in his left shoulder. Now, he's a right-handed pitcher, but if you watch, you don't get to see a lot of it on TV, but I'm seeing this guy come to bat, and I'm wondering why he doesn't swing the bat, ever. Now I know. He's got a torn labrum in his left shoulder. He can't swing the bat. He's trying to punt every time, every pitch. Now I know. But he's still out there pitching. Lugo's been good. Has been okay. But look, when these guys, if these guys are the guys we're putting out there in against playoff competition, I really think we're in trouble.
Right, but then again, they've surprised just to be in a position where they are number one going into today. They've got a number one for the first playoff position.
Oh yeah, I know, and it's
amazing. It's almost amazing. Yeah.
No, it absolutely is with these guys.
Yeah. Just as I was saying bad things earlier in the year about the manager, Collins, I'm saying good things now. He's got to be pulling it together on some level. And the signing of Reyes, I think that helped quite a bit.
He's
surprised.
His attitude. Well, he's got that attitude, that spark,
like
that liveliness, and the speed on the bases. I mean, they had nobody that could run on this team. So
and some that were I mean, Flores, for instance, for an infielder is about as slow as anybody I've ever seen.
Yeah, and Loney.
He's another plotter.
I swear. I look at this guy. He hits he's not even in the picture, and the ball's at first base, and where is he? I mean, I think I could beat this guy in a foot race.
Are you a fast Mert? You probably could have.
I was, but I'm wondering if I could even do it now in a short race. But in any case, they got nobody can run on this team except Reyes. It's really tough. People yell at Tim Tuffle. What is he supposed to do? He knows these guys can't run. Every once in a while, you got to take a chance. If the pitcher's coming up next and there's two out, you got to take a shot.
Right.
But that's what happened to Flores. He got thrown out at the plate. Of course, these head first slides don't do anybody any good.
I don't understand that on any level. Who teaches these people, especially sliding into first base, as if that doesn't slow one down?
Yeah.
You only do it to avoid a tag. And it's become commonplace for the last, not just this few years, 15 years now, these guys, a lot of them getting hurt, fingers jammed, and what have you. I wonder about minor league instruction. I wonder about rushing guys along. I wonder about whether or not that looks cool. And the baseball image, where guys are at least doing something that I don't know. Maybe I can't put my finger on that. But they've become
sliding into second like on a steal. I can kind of understand it, because if you slide in with your feet, these days with the challenging, you come off the base for a second, and the guy's got the ball on you. He's not taking it off. He's holding it on the guy. So if they go in head first, they grab it with their hand and they hold on. That part I can understand. But sliding into home when the catcher's there with equipment on, that's not too smart.
No, that's not a good idea. But as you can remember, there was an art to sliding into second, into third, hook slides, hitch slide, where you fake a direction you're going to slide in. They don't have that anymore. You never see a guy getting credit for a hook slide into a base.
No.
And the game's changed. I think the abilities have improved dramatically. I mean, what with training and some people breed just so they can have an athlete as a kid. A lot of them, a lot of folks. It's become in the American dream. You're going to make it if your kid makes the majors. That's your American dream. And they have these travel teams, and from the time a kid is 5 years old, he's bred literally, which precludes other sports and the fun of it. It's all bullshit, really. It started with Joey J in the Little League. They didn't pick us either. That's another thing.
But it could have something to do with all these injuries these guys have.
I just wanted to lead into the fact that, given that they are slow, they sit around and wait for the home run, and it has happened. Canseco, I said it again. Cespedes is going to go down as a Met icon, no question about that. Last year at the end, and he's already over 30 home runs, and he's
the team's got 200. So the team has 200 homers.
Which wow, they talked about the 61 Yankees with 200 home runs as being this, that, and the other thing. So, yeah, you're talking. And Granderson showing signs of real life and doing what he did the other night. Game-tying home run in extra innings, and the game-winning home run in the same game, extra innings.
First time in that history.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's hard to do. I mean, normally you hit a home run in extra innings, the game's over, you know.
Right, right. But he came back and tied it, and
Yep.
Yeah, we at least root for an interesting team, Mert. Over the years, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
I learned stuff, and speaking of giving credit, Howie Rose as the announcer. I get the MLB radio package, so I can have the game going literally in my pocket as I go through life. And but I learned things about past Mets and past Mets players.
He knows everything. Yeah.
Oh wow.
They would have a trivia show here on the Mets station, SNY. They have like a competition, Howie Rose and Gary Cohen against fans. Two fans, trivia questions. And, the questions they come up with are the oddest. I mean, I don't know how anybody outside of your friend Alan
Blumpkin, yes.
I mean, outside of him, I don't know how anybody knows these things or can remember.
Or can make up the questions. My other friend, Ron Liebman, he was on when you were at one time, has the talent of making up the interesting questions. It's a twofold talent. Coming up with something and you go, wow, that's interesting enough to be a question. And then being able to answer the damn thing, unreal. I do know that little Alvin Jackson was born on Christmas Day.
Yeah, well, when you hear it,
Texas,
50 times in the season,
you're right.
What was it? Little Alvin Jackson from Waco, Texas, born on Christmas Day, one of 11 children of a retired railroad. I mean, how many times did you hear that?
Something like that.
It was almost every time the guy came into a game, you heard that spiel.
That was Bob Murphy.
Bob Murphy?
We knew him before he became great. When they first got together, those three.
Lindsey Nelson was the only real professional.
Right. And we were listening before those guys. Of course, we were listening to Phil Rizzuto, Mel Allen, Red Barber, Vin Scully, Russ Hodges. Coleman was terrific. So we were very, very sensitive to our ears. We did. They weren't doing it, but they became all right. And of course, Kiner became iconic for his Kinerisms and all of that. It's been a fun team media wise. But I listened to out here John Miller, who is so good. And because I got the MLB TV package, so when the Giant games are on, he's on. Right.
But everybody remembers him from ESPN. Wasn't he on ESPN for a long time?
With Joe Morgan.
Yeah, he was.
He was with Joe Morgan.
Yeah, he was very good. Very good.
He is very good. So I put Howie Rose in good company today. And do you get a chance to listen to, just because it's his last year more than anything, you get a chance to listen to Vin at all on your
Absolutely. Oh, definitely. Yeah. He's on all the LA home games, you know, and he does it by himself still, alone.
Right.
At that age. And he's still with the stories, like, and they're good ones. You know, some of them from like 50, 60 years ago. It's unbelievable how he remembers these things, the specifics. Just fantastic. You know?
Now, somewhere on the internet, there is a series going on where players that come into Dodger Stadium, players and managers, get to come up to Vin's office, if you will, his broadcasting booth.
The booth, yeah.
And he makes time for them. It's like a little 5-minute segment. And he knows who's coming, obviously, but he greets those people with respect and knows so much about the individual players that are coming to honor him that he makes the whole thing seem like he's honoring them. It's so wonderful. Madden of the Cubs came up, you know, and they see him walking up the ramp and going up to, you know, pregame and what have you. And what a gentleman. That's the interview that stands out. But what a gentleman Vin Scully is. And, God, it was sad when I realized the other day he's not when it was announced the other day, if the Dodgers make the playoffs, he's not going to do any of the games. Yeah,
I heard that. His last game, he's going to do it from San Francisco. I know he usually doesn't travel. But he's going to do the last couple of games from San Francisco.
And as Linda Wilson knows, that comes full circle because Vin, growing up in the Bronx, was a Mel Ott fan, a Giant fan, and a Mel Ott worshiper. And he talks about that all the time. And he's also a great crossword puzzle answer. 6 down, 3 letters, former Giant, Ott, O-T-T. You see that?
Yeah, in fact, I was in a puzzle I was doing today, as a matter of fact.
Was it really?
Right. Yeah. Wow. It's in there a lot. You're right. OTT is in there a lot. Absolutely.
I always think, do they mean Ott? You know, that can be very confusing. But I guess they mean Mel. Mert, this is terrific as usual. Thank you for being you for just 60. Oh, I got to tell you a story. I'm back for, as you know, in New York for the neighborhood reunion that we had. And I'm older than most of the people back there. I don't know very many, but everyone that I talk to has either a friend, an acquaintance, a sibling, a brother, a sister, that 6 levels of connection. This is 2 levels when you live in Northridge. So we're talking about everybody and anybody. There's a woman there, our age, and we're just chatting. Her name, I don't know if you remember the name, Bonnie Yari.
You know what? I remember the name, but I don't remember what she looked like. I don't remember much about. I do remember the name. Yes, I do.
Well, she was in our 2nd grade class together with Miss Ross.
Oh, okay.
And we're standing in front of PS 148 and talking about our favorite teacher at 148. Wow, we were in the same class. I didn't remember the name, but she was obviously in our class, same age. And the 3 schools we went to, junior high school 145, and Newtown, she went to those schools as well. And I said, who was your favorite teacher in all of those schools besides Miss Ross? That was the second grade. I only had one favorite teacher, and she says, Miss Stracker. Did you have her in English, for English at Newtown?
Stracker. Cool.
Well, you would have, because she was she said Miss Stracker. I said, wow. Because
I remember
all
Miss
those
Sheben in American
Sheben too. Yes, she
pretty
was
blonde.
Pretty blonde with nice wheels, but Stracker had legs that went all the way up to Canada.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And she taught us to memorize 2 poems that were incredibly instrumental. Bonnie and I started going Invictus by William Ernest Henley, Out of the Night That Covers Me, Black as a Pit from Pole to Pole, that kind of thing. And we
still remember it, huh?
Still remember, both of us. And there was another one we didn't talk about, Bonnie and I, but it was whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people.
Oh yeah.
Which
I remember that one.
Simon and Garfunkel made a song about that, but those 2 poems were inspirational poems to me in lifetime. Invictus, you're the master of your fate, the captain of your soul. Richard Cory, this was a rich guy that everybody envied, which is a horrible emotion. And they'd go on working through their lives, cursing the bread and, working for the light. And one summer night, Richard Cory puts a bullet through his head. So doesn't know what's going on in other people's lives and what they're suffering from. Envy, I've found over all these years, is one messed up emotion. So here's to you, Miss Stracker. You're probably getting up there a little, I'm guessing. But you never lost it. You was such a big effect on 2 people coming back to reunion. Probably the last neighborhood reunion, because Wayne Unger, who has been putting it together for 15 years, he's moving to Florida. This is
so I heard. Yeah.
And unless somebody with his zeal and energy comes up to replace him, it's not likely either, because there weren't that many folks there. But the ones that were, it was terrific. Terrific being there.
Great.
Terrific getting the old neighborhood. And the only thing
I can't believe, though, as soon as I leave, you come. Just the way it worked out. I can't believe that. Now, Barn tells me he's going to New York. I don't know, in November or sometime. He's going to New York. He's going to play a gig in some place on First Avenue.
Whoa.
And I'm here, and he's going to New York. I mean, are you kidding me? Unbelievable.
Yeah. The timing of it all. I've got an idea to get you out to California. So you and Peg, you're going to come out. We're Tally and I are putting together this. We had this wonderful Airbnb experience in the Heights.
Where was that exactly?
85th and Northern Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
And, there's
convenient.
Very convenient, like 4 or 5 blocks away, and we used that neighborhood as a hub when the neighborhood itself is terrific. I mean, so eclectic, so many great restaurants, changed so much, and so interesting. You wouldn't recognize the populace, the buildings that I didn't pay attention to as a kid, the architecture, not Northridge itself. Yeah. Northridge looks like city housing. No disrespect, there's solid buildings, and they did as well, but in the 80s and the 70s around Joseph Pulitzer, Jackson Heights, New York, has beautiful architecture and a great eclectic neighborhood with a good deli that we went to every morning. The same deli we went to every morning. We had Colombian food. We had Chinese food. Pizza Sam is still there.
Yep.
If anybody out there, if you're not from Jackson Heights and you didn't grow up there and you didn't get a chance to, sorry, no matter where. A lot of great places to be born and raised.
I was there a couple of years ago. I was going to my daughter got me tickets to a Mets game, so we drove from Staten Island, and I showed her the old neighborhood before we went to the ballpark. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, it was nice.
The only significant changes in Northridge are these iron gates that close off the sitting area.
The sitting areas, yeah.
And replace the bushes.
I guess you need a key to get in there, huh?
Right. Absolutely. A key. Spanish is easy.
They redid all the windows. Remember, those old crappy windows we used to have?
Yeah, but I didn't pay much attention. I posted a picture of 3223 looking up at apartment 201.
Yeah.
For those of you not listening.
We used to have those casement windows that you cranked, and you cranked them and the window opened. Now they got obviously all replaced with regular up and down windows. So.
Probably a good idea. I remember those. And I also remember the distinct air conditioning smell kind of thing from those windows. It was they were cold and they'd sweat.
I wonder if they made those buildings central air now, because when I was there, I don't recall seeing air conditioners hanging out the windows like we used to have.
Oh yeah, no, they still have.
Oh, did they?
No, yeah, they're still out there.
I didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, Mert. We'll do it next week, same time, same bat station.
Okay. Good talking.
All right.
Have a good week.
Say hi to Peg and be well.
Same to Tally. Speak
All right. Everybody else out there, hang in there. Keep on keeping on. And see you next week. Bye.